The return of ground effect has created a Formula One that's honestly extremely difficult for engineers. When the current technical regulations of Formula One were announced, there was a certain excitement. The return of ground effect was promising in so many ways. First of all, the goal was to substantially reduce aerodynamic disturbances for chasing cars, theoretically making close duels and overtakes more likely. And then, from a purely technical point of view, there was the return of the Venturi effect under the car as the main source of aerodynamic downforce. It's a concept from a past era, but also something to rediscover and explore, with the promise of unlocking new limits and records for cars on track. The combination of new regulations and the introduction of the budget cap was also meant to help keep the grid close, preventing excessive laggards and unbridgeable gaps. But out of all these goals, only a small part of the initial promises has actually been fulfilled. The grid is certainly tighter. In 2021 at the Circuit de Catalunya-Barcelona, between the first and the last car in Q1, there was a 2-second gap. This year, only 0.8, a constant trend practically at every Grand Prix. But beyond this, in this final year of this technical formula, we can now identify more defeats than victories against expectations. Car aerodynamics have progressively become more complicated, pushing in directions that today generate at least as much aerodynamic disturbance as the old regulations, making close following just as difficult again. Moreover, the cars have proven among the most complex ever built in terms of understanding and exploiting potential. The mechanical platform is now the real limiting factor on performance, with aerodynamics near the development ceiling, often behaving differently from simulations due to suspension setup constraints. Restrictions on simulations and wind tunnel use help hide the problems engineers and drivers face on track. Tires with their tiny operating window, to which teams themselves significantly contribute with their demands to Pirelli, add another layer of difficulty, contributing to a Formula One that is technically a real puzzle only a few can sometimes solve. Two teams share 8 world titles, while the absence of the other two creates the dominance. If the difficulty coefficient is very high, it is also true that in these 4 years we can identify 2 seasons of technical dominance, or potential dominance. The first is clearly 2023, with Red Bull winning 21 out of 22 races. This dominance actually started in mid-2022 and extended into the first third of 2024, when McLaren, the rising papaya arrow, appeared on the scene, showing typical dominant characteristics this season. Constructors' title already sealed, and the drivers' title practically limited to their drivers after just a third of the scheduled races. In the end, only these 2 teams will share the 8 world titles awarded in the wing car era, despite 4 teams on the grid that can be considered top teams by resources, commitment, and drivers Ferrari and Mercedes are missing. The real problem, looking at the facts on track, is not only the dominance of certain teams, but that the dominance ultimately comes directly from the inability of the Maranello and Brackley teams to produce cars truly capable of fighting for championships. Let's now quickly review these 4 seasons to clarify this point. It all begins back in 2022, when Ferrari starts strong much to our delight. Charles Leclerc leads the standings, but unfortunately the F175 single-seater falters due to the introduction of Technical Directive TD39, floor flexibility issues, and other factors. From the French GP, where Charles Leclerc crashed while leading, Max Verstappen wins 9 of 11 races, and Red Bull easily wins the constructors' title. McLaren is still far behind, while Mercedes, after closing a dominant 2021 Formula One season, tries the zero-pod approach to gain an edge. It won't work, and Toto Wolff pushes hard amid complaints about porpoising and the introduction of technical directives. During the winter, common thought was Mercedes could benefit from the directives and present a competitive car in 2023, while Ferrari could fix the balance issues that directives had somehow damaged. Neither kept the promise, showing they hadn't fully grasped the true secrets of the technical regulations. The result was one of the most overwhelming dominations in Formula One history, with midfield teams like Aston Martin able to regularly fight for podiums thanks to the vacuum left by SF23 and W14. In the second half of the season, McLaren begins to emerge near the front, starting from behind but clearly understanding how to make these cars work. The 2024 Formula One Championship begins with Red Bull Max Verstappen still dominant in the first races, but from the Miami Grand Prix, McLaren becomes the fastest car on track and extends the performance gap until end of the seasons, while Red Bull enters a technical crisis. The Austrian team that had dominated incredibly just weeks before seems lost and clings to Max Verstappen to stay near the front, while Ferrari and Mercedes appear to have finally found the key to performance. Especially the Maranello team, which nearly wins the Constructors' title, while Mercedes secures 4 race victories with 2 finishes at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit and in the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The championship ends, and the 2025 winter is full of anticipation. The last year of this regulation arrives, and all 4 top teams seem to have found a performance key. Perhaps Red Bull is the most in crisis, considered the probable 4th force in this battle, and still hanging solely on the 4-time Formula One world champion. The 2025 Formula One championship begins, and McLaren dominates ahead of Max Verstappen's Red Bull RB21. Everyone is surprised, yet if we look at the end of 2024 predictions, the Dutchman and Red Bull are exactly where expected among the fastest. Behind, sometimes able to win a race, relying on Max Verstappen's talent for the driver's standings and nothing more. So why the surprise at the dominance? Because 2 teams once again have not made the expected leap forward over winter. Ferrari and Mercedes are once again absent and culpable from the fight, and the vacuum they leave up front becomes McLaren's advantage. Curiously, both the SF25 and W16 this year reportedly show rear suspension problems, confirming that mechanics are the limiting factor on these cars. In general, dominance, especially in today's super competitive Formula One, never happens because a single team found some mysterious miracle key. It requires the complicity of the competition, which has consistently happened these seasons. Overall, we can say that Ferrari has been better than Mercedes, but at the same time without a winning phase for too many years. Between the Maranello and Brackley teams in this era, we must say that with equal 0 titles, to quote a certain Jose Mourinho, the Italian side has achieved better results and fought more. The F175 was a great car early in the 2022 Formula One campaign, and the SF24 pushed the Constructors' title fight against McLaren to the final round of the previous championship at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, with several weekends of true excellence. On the other hand, Mercedes appeared stunned after the zero-pod design misstep and somewhat resigned in standings, awaiting the 2026 Formula One project where it places great hopes on the power unit, partly satisfied by the 15 world titles won in the previous era. If we draw conclusions, all 4 top teams have had more than one negative phase in this era. Ferrari lost its way in 2023 and early 2025. Mercedes was overall inferior to Ferrari. Red Bull had a dominant phase but squandered a huge lead in just over a year. McLaren today dominates but was among the slowest early in these regulations. Ultimately, in an era born to level the field and revive competition, the gap was created not only by those who dominated but especially by those who failed to show up for the challenge.